When it comes to men and pornography, society shouts, "It's bad, don't do it," but they never give any real solutions. Bruce Lengeman, author of the book To Kill a Lion, helps to free Christian men from the nagging grip of sexual lust through heart changes, not just behavior changes.
Hi, welcome to the show To Kill a Lion. I'm Suzanne Lynn with Bruce and Ruthie Lengeman, and they're just on a mission to share about what pornography does to families and to talk about the book that he wrote that they actually both wrote together, right? You're crediting Ruthie just as much as your hands that wrote it because she was your inspiration, right?
Oh, 100%. I wouldn't have written it without her.
Really?
I say fun her nagging, but her good nagging.
Well, that's nice to know that we do have positive nagging that contributes to things. I mean, when we feel that in our spirit, which is what I'm guessing that Ruthie probably did,
That's right.
It's something that, as your helper, we needed to express that and keep on you about that. So I'm glad that she did.
It's called holy nagging.
holy nagging. I like that. You better hashtag that. Make the what's that called? Registering it or whatever.
That's right.
Bruce, before we talk to Ruthie much about this, why don't you talk about the general overall arching reason that you wrote To Kill a Lion and what it's about?
My overarching reason for writing To Kill a Lion was because I had a sexual problem. And I was a professional counselor, and I would counsel all the sexually addicted men who came to our counseling agency. And I was having a 0% recovery rate.
Wow.
And yes, until I ran into another sexual therapist that I had the opportunity to talk to. And I told him, I said, I'm not having a lot of results. And like a good counselor, he said, well, let's talk about your sexuality if you're not having good results. And I told him that I didn't do the movies, I didn't do the magazines, I didn't do the mental images, I didn't porn, I walked in purity. And then he said something that changed my life. And at that point in time, I think he ruined my life.
Wait, he had to have said something like, "You are a man among men. How do you do it?" That must have been what he said.
I stepped back because I thought he was going to fall on his face and worship me.
I can understand that.
And he
You're
did.
the only man in the world that can honestly say what you just said.
He looked at me and says, I perceive you have a sexual problem. And he said, and that you are no more than a master suppressor. And it's like, I mean, today my whole life was just came in front of me. But at the same time, there was this hope. Do you mean there's a place I can get to where my wanter can be changed? And so the book is about my journey of going from not free to, which means I wasn't allowed to, but I wanted to the place of free not to, where I don't want the devil's junk.
Wow.
But also, it didn't infringe on my highly sexual nature. I still have that. My wife will verify that, God made men sexual and he wants them to stay sexual, and becoming pure in your life isn't going to change that. It's just lust and God, the way God made sexuality are two different things. And so that's why I went on to write the book To Kill a Lion, because To Kill a Lion takes you to what I discovered that day. It's not about behavior modification. It is about heart transformation. And in order to overcome sexual addiction or sexual dependency, you have to break into the control room of the heart. And when you do that, that's why I say that overcoming sexuality is a life transforming process. Because when you get rid of those roots in there, it's going to change every area of your life, not only just the way you express your sexuality.
Okay, I got to back up to something you said, because you skipped over in just one sentence. You went and you skipped over a humongous chasm that seems impossible to cross, to go from not having the freedom to be able to be a sexual being to not wanting to use it in a disrespectful way or an ungodly way. And that chasm is mind-boggling big to me. How does that happen?
Suzanne, it is mind-boggling big to you. And I believe that that's the major impact of the book, why it has helped so many men, because that's where men are caught. Down inside, they're driven by the lust, and they can get to the place where they, like I say, behavior modification for a while. They can control their behavior. But as long as that junk is in your heart, you're still going to want it. But what your desire for lust, what lust is doing is actually, it's a futile attempt by your physiology, your brain, to fill a void in your life that can't be satisfied by that lust. And when you find the thing that's really going to heal you and fulfill you in life through Jesus Christ and through the truth of the word, those voids are gone, and you're not going to need that as a fix anymore in your life. And so that's the difference. That's what I found out when I went to the roots, and I found out about shame, and I found out about rejection and mother wounds and father wounds and a host of other things that I bring out in the book. I came out the other end a totally different man that Ruthie can verify.
Ruthie, would you talk about that?
Yes, one of the most confusing things for me is that Bruce walked in purity around me. I'd go out to eat with him. I'd be walking around with him. He wouldn't look at the billboards. He wouldn't look at women walking by at the restaurant. And he wasn't like guarding himself that way. I just could tell it wasn't something that was controlling his life. And so as time went on, I thought, why do I feel devalued? Or why do I feel like when we go upstairs to the bedroom that there's someone else in the bedroom? And yet he has been so pure before me that it was so confusing. It
is confusing. That's tremendous insight. How did you resolve that? Where did you go with that?
Can I say that no matter what I did, you didn't feel enough?
Right. And the reason I didn't feel enough, and the reason I didn't even talk to him about it for a while, was because he was demonstrating to me purity, loving me, wanting me physically, meaning I don't even mean sexually, but he put his arm around me. He had talked very pleasant to me. And so I felt very loved by him, but I also felt I wasn't enough.
I imagine, Ruthie, you must be going, okay, I don't feel like I'm enough, but I'm not quite sure what to ask for.
Absolutely. Even going to the bedroom and feeling that feeling of having some other woman in the room wasn't because what Bruce was showing me or activating at all. It was because what he was going through in his heart, I could pick up.
Tell about being in the basement. When you cried out in the basement?
Oh, yes.
That's very significant. Before that, I met the counselor. Go ahead.
Before he showed any of this change or anything, I remember going down to our basement and just looking up at God and saying, God, I don't know what to do. Help me. Change whatever it is that I need to change. And I didn't know it was Bruce that needed to change. I thought it was me that needed to change. But then I just said, God, help me. And I didn't scream it, but I just said it very, very loud, alone with God downstairs.
And it was after the Jim Baker and the Jimmy Swaggart thing.
Yes, I didn't understand why godly men could fall. I didn't understand why they would defile the whole scope of people watching their ministry. And yet something like that took them out. And that was something I didn't understand. Then it made me fear. Bruce was so loving to me. I thought, but if these men will do it, why won't Bruce eventually? And that was another part of the pain.
Ruthie, what you're saying is just so absolutely profound. I mean, no matter how much trust we might have in our spouse, there's no question I could pick up my husband's phone or I have every password possible. I still find when I roll over in bed and he's on the iPad at 2:00 in the morning, I open my eyes and I am fearful of what he's looking at. And I haven't been disappointed yet, but 34 years of marriage, and does that ever leave you?
It does, because a woman very, very strongly picks up something in her spirit, and many times she can't explain it. And so that's where I was at. I was picking something up in my spirit that was not demonstrated on the outside at all. But I wondered, why was I confused with reality, but yet with the emptiness of my spirit in that area? And so I really, really, really felt a freedom when he started into the journey of his freedom. It's like I had an open door that I didn't have before. And he brought me into the whole journey. It wasn't like I was waiting and waiting and waiting. It was as soon as he started and he saw, like the master suppressor, he shared it with me and he said, would you come along with me? And that made all the difference.
Now, would you say that you don't have those fears anymore?
Oh, not at all. I don't even think about it. In fact, when he brings up the book and says he's going to teach about it, I smile and say, go for it, because I know how freely he walks. He just freely walks in that area.
You probably didn't realize, Bruce and Ruthie, that your story in this book was all part of God's plan when you were going through this. How could anything good possibly come out of this? But until you hit rock bottom, you can't empathize with people who have the problems.
Yeah, one thing that brought her freedom, Suzanne, was I met with this counselor after he confronted me. I had a couple sessions with him, but she didn't know that. I was going away to a hotel, and I didn't tell her the whole truth because I didn't think I'd ever be able to tell her, or maybe be able to tell her in three years, maybe after I really got victory, because I didn't want to lose her respect. And that was an area I really had respect.
Oh,
I'm just going to say, Bruce, sneaking off to a hotel right from the start makes me a little nervous hearing that. But I mean, your heart again was in the right place and you were trying to protect her.
Yeah, that's right. And the counselor came to the hotel. We had sessions at that hotel. I traveled to meet him. And in just those couple of days, I saw a whole new view of what God wanted to do. And that started the journey. But what happened was when I came home, after I think 2 times, I think it was twice, I came home one time, I went to her nightie drawer.
He can say nebular.
And I put them in a bag and threw them out. Okay, now, God forbid, I'm not saying that that's wrong. You know, it's not wrong for people to have their own, nighttime attire that they have for each other. That's no problem. But for me, it was a link to the lust and the lion that was in my heart, the lion of lust that was in my heart. And for her, that's why she didn't feel enough, because some of those things from that I had as a teenager, movies I went to and things like that, I was bringing into the bedroom, but not even realizing that they were wrong, but it was putting a sexual performance on her. And so when I threw that out, I think that was the biggest sign that something had changed. And in 1 week, I'll tell you this real quick, 1 week, we were teaching a conference, and the director, we had the first session. And then there was a break, and the director and his wife had the second session, and we had the third session. Now imagine this, we're at a conference with a bunch of people after our session, and we're waiting out in the lobby while they teach their session. That's when I dropped the bomb between those 2 sessions. And you know her reaction? She was stunned. It was like taking her back. And then,
I told him right away, Bruce, in fact, it's making me sensitive, but I told him right away, Bruce, it just makes me respect you so much.
It was hope.
Oh, I had such hope, even though he hadn't done anything in front of me and he had been pure on his own. That sensing that I felt all of a sudden just started to go away. And I didn't know why at that time. Just that he said what he said to me, something has changed. I cannot wait to walk this journey with him.
You know, I thought we were going to be talking a lot more about the book on this initial show. And what I'm taking away is so much bigger than what are in the pages of your book. Mm-hmm. I see so much peace with both of you. Mm-hmm. And I can't wait to start diving in and finding very specific topics, because there's so much I want to say. I mean, the love and the respect and the peace that you both have, anybody would want that. Anybody would want that. And you don't have to be married to want to have that kind of peace. You can just see it. It just exudes, I guess is the word, from both of you. And I think if I had to say what the book is about, based on knowing you two in this talk, I'm going to go with peace. And there's a lot more to dive into, but that is that's absolutely amazing.
The piece, Suzanne, that comes from my book is that the book is more about having a transformed life, overcoming woundedness, as I said, rejection, shame, any kind of issue that's a tormentor in your life, and filling the voids deeply. Now, we go from fruit to root, and the fruit may be the sexual addiction, like any kind of addiction. It's in the control room, in the drive. They're issues of the heart. And so the peace that comes is the peace of being aligned with the Father's heart and coming to that wholeness and that abundant life, the confidence in our identity. Identity issues are major. I mean, men suffer with identity issues, and identity issues and sexual addiction are parallel like railroad tracks.
Really?
Absolutely, 100%. Actually, sometimes I say that sexual addiction is an identity issue. It's a self-worth issue, really, because when you know who you are and you can walk in the peace of the authority of who God made you to be and the dignity of manhood, you're not going to mess around with that junk that's violating God. It's violating your wife. It's violating the girls that you look at. It's violating yourself, you know?
Wow. Ruthie, I want to give you a chance before we sign off. Do you have any final thoughts before we end the show number one?
One of my final thoughts, very strong, I still carry the piece of that, is that the whole journey was step after step after step. And Bruce let me walk with him every step. And just after a couple steps that I saw such a transformation in him, I said, Bruce, write this down because we don't want to forget this. Write it down. And then near the end, I said, Bruce, other men need to hear this. Other men will want to be set free. Other men will not want to carry this lion around with them the rest of their life. They want to kill that lion and walk free. And that's what I saw Bruce do. So that's how the book came, is we just seeing his change and my desire for other men through what he walked through was the creation of To Kill a Lion.
Yes. And I'm very vulnerable in the book, you know, and I knew that was the only way that it was going to have impact. If I didn't come across as someone that had my act together and everybody else needed to get their act together, because that's not the way it was. Just like what she said, it was step after step.
We're going to have fun with these shows. Thank you so much for sharing so honestly and vulnerably.
Right.
Man, we got a big, long, amazing journey ahead. So thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Ruthie. Have a great day and on to the next one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining Bruce on the show, To Kill a Lion. Please feel free to visit tokillalion.com to purchase books, schedule Bruce to speak at your event, and find all kinds of resources. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a single episode.